All rise. Ladies and gentlemen, the Supreme Court Chief Justice of Alabama, Sue Bell Cobb.
I have decided not only not to seek re-election to another term as Chief Justice, but also that I will be stepping down. Another statewide race at this point in time would require me to raise millions and millions of dollars while constantly endeavoring to appear and remain impartial. My family and I had spent a good 2 years, if not longer, planning, working on the campaign for Chief Justice. The day after the election, the phone rang. It was a reporter from the National Law Journal, and her question was, since you've now been elected in the single most expensive appellate court race in the United States of America in 2006, how are you going to convince the citizens of Alabama that you're going to make your decision based on the law and facts and not on the huge amounts of donations that you received? It's a sad day when the obscene amounts of money in judicial campaigns have caused people to think judges are mere politicians.
In the 70s and early 80s, most judicial elections were very sleepy affairs. They would raise very little money. TV ads and that sort of thing were almost unheard of. I think I've heard them compared to as boring as a game of checkers played by mail.
I looked back and I saw a document of how much I spent in my first campaign in 1982, and I think it was like $2,000. And mostly it just came from family.
Starting in the early 80s, as the states were enacting tort reforms, we started seeing a lot of money pouring into the campaign.
Interests started to realize that they could come in and actually have enormous influence on who was selected as a justice or a judge, and then how they ruled. They go about it by running an attack ad based on a criminal justice issue, because that's the way to get public attention and that's the way to really influence the judges.
I was convicted of stabbing my victims with a kitchen knife.
Of shooting my ex-girlfriend and murdering her sister in front of our child.
On appeal, Justice Thomas Kilbride sided with us.
Over law enforcement or victims.
These ads are presented under this veil of being about criminal justice, when in fact it's about commercial and money interests.
The problem with these ads is judges realize that the way they rule in one particular case can affect their chances of being reelected. And so it puts a lot of pressure on them to think in every case, how is this going to affect my future chances of elections?
The right to a fair trial is a founding principle of our democracy. And it's a basic value that everyone in America believes in.
I voted in thousands of criminal cases, affirming the overwhelming majority of them. But when the error was so fundamental and impacted a criminal defendant's right to a fair trial, my vote would be to reverse, and many of those cases were reversed. One of the most important attributes a judge should have is the courage to do the right thing regardless of the political circumstances. And I firmly believe in my heart that most judges do that. But they certainly are concerned come election time with what decision, controversial or otherwise, might be picked out, and that one controversial case will be the one that's picked out of thousands of decisions and shown to the public.
Another political TV commercial gets yanked from the airwaves.
In the campaign, I was ahead, doing very, very well when the slick mail pieces began. They characterized me in ways that if you didn't know me, you would have nothing but a negative impression of me. And said it in a very uncomplimentary, unflattering way, needless to say. I was at the point where I literally put my head on my husband's lap and said, I don't want to listen to the radio. I don't want to watch TV, because you'll see all the ads just cycling and recycling. You know, you've lived a life that you think is worthy of respect. You've tried to earn people's respect, because when you're making important decisions over people's lives, all judges have is respect to the people. And seeing all of these slick mail pieces going out, trying to tear apart the life that I had built, was unbelievably unsettling.
There was, a century's worth of judicial elections where we didn't see a lot of these problems. So it's not the elections per se, it's the money in the elections. Independent money, which tends to be dark money, there's a lot less accountability for how the money's being spent and who's giving it. A lot of people are concerned about that lack of accountability in dark money.
Citizens United essentially opened the floodgates to money pouring into election by removing the restrictions that had been in place. It took something that was already a problem and amplified it.
The court struck down laws that prevented corporations from spending as much of their own money as they wanted to buy ads supporting or opposing candidates. Justice Anthony Kennedy, writing for the 5-member majority, said the First Amendment prohibits Congress from fining citizens or associations of citizens, like corporations, for simply engaging in political speech. But the court's 4 dissenters predicted that corporate money will drown out the voice of the little guy.
Independent spending increased across all elections, across all different branches of government, but in judicial elections it's especially concerning.
What is at stake here is not elected officials who we expect to be politicians, but elected officials who we expect to be neutral and impartial. And they're being swept into the system, and the idea is to influence outcomes of cases.
We looked for statistical relationships between the number of ads that were run in the states where these judges served and the way the judges ruled in these different kinds of cases. Our first finding was that, in general, the more TV ads that are run during these judicial campaigns, the less likely judges are to rule in favor of the criminal defendant. So they become a little bit harsher on crime, and that harshness increases the more and more TV ads are run in the states. The second finding was looking directly at the relationship between independent spending and the way the judges are ruling in these criminal cases. What we did was look at before and after Citizens United.
The data makes it clear. Since Citizens United, with the incredible surge of money, justices are ruling much more significantly against criminal defendants than they were before.
Justice should be determined based on the facts and based on the law. When there is data that shows that that's not the case, or even if the public believes that that's not the case, it compromises the integrity of the system, and then justice is derailed.
Most judges want to be good judges, and they feel like their hands are a little bit tied when there is a conflict between what they feel like they should be doing to be these neutral interpreters of the law versus what they feel like they have to do if they want to remain on the bench.
We need to step back and analyze whether there's a better system. And that means we need to examine real reforms to ensure that we have a system that's fair and impartial and not a system that's biased.
Justice is applying the law. Justice is when a person, regardless of their means, has adequate and effective representation. Justice should be the most heartfelt desire of anyone who wears a robe.